And we're back, everybody, for a part 2 of our After the Episode Game of Thrones recap for Season 8, Episode 3, The Long Night. This time, Corey is joining us. Welcome, Corey.
Hi, sorry.
No problem. We totally
No
understand.
worries.
I slept through the first part.
So we
Happens
already
to the
did the
best of us.
recap for the episode, for
Yeah.
last episode, so we'll just get right into thoughts, and we'll get started with you, Corey. What'd you think of the episode? You can go in
Yes.
any order you want, however you want to break it down. I'll
Yep.
let you run
Yeah.
the
So I try to avoid listening to my own recaps and reading what other people are thinking online and stuff. Only because I like to have fresh, original thoughts for this.
show. Uh-huh.
And then after we record this, then I'll go and do a little bit of research. But I did listen to your guys' recap.
Uh-huh.
And I think I'm one of those people that you guys were targeting with your
Okay.
not so bad, because I feel like some of the arguments, like you're only covering half of it, whereas I think there's another side of it that maybe people aren't articulating as well as I'm gonna try to.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, let's hear
But
it.
and yeah, like I'm not pretending to be an expert or anything, but people that listen to Thumbstick Athletes know this about me, and I feel like a broken record, but I went to film school and studied screenwriting.
Yeah.
That was my
Yes.
focus. So it was a lot of emphasis on storytelling.
Mhm.
So when I watch things like Game of Thrones, like I always have that churning
Uh-huh.
in the back of my head,
Sure.
whether it's accurate or inaccurate. Like I'm always thinking at that level, like, what's going to make for the most dramatic storytelling. And that's what the goal of TV and movies is a good story well told.
Yeah.
And I think this goes back a couple seasons for me, because I'm in the camp, and I've seen a lot of people echo this, that the show really went downhill in terms of writing once they passed the source material.
Yeah.
And
That
that's not to say
that
go ahead.
D&D were better at adaptation than coming up with original content. And I kind of agree with that. I mean,
Yeah.
seasons 1 through 4, I mean, I even told Eric, seasons 2 through 4 are my favorites.
Yeah.
And there's great moments after that, but those 2 through 4 is like that's where Game of Thrones is at its best, in my opinion.
Yeah, great moments, right? So there's a lot of great moments, and there's a lot of great moments in this most recent episode, for sure.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought.
Story.
But anyway,
Just the storytelling
Right.
going downhill the past few
right.
seasons.
So great moments has still been a part of the show, right?
Mhm.
We haven't lost any of those. But I just feel like as a whole, the episodes aren't as cohesive, and even some of the like really clever nods to stuff that happened in the past is more or less just a callback rather than a really smart metaphor.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm trying to think of a really good example, but I feel like we've seen a lot of it this season especially. But it
Yes.
kind of makes sense in the context of what's going on, because like some of these characters are seeing each other for the first time or having a conversation about something for the first time that they haven't had before. So what else can you do but a callback? So that's the bird's eye view of where I'm going with all of this. But and I've complained about the first 2 episodes in this season too. I said they're fine, but I wasn't crazy about them. And this one, I feel the exact same way. It was fine, but I wasn't crazy about it. And the biggest thing for me in this episode was the writing. There wasn't a lot of dialogue because it was all battle.
Yeah.
That's fine. But you guys touched on pretty much all of the issues I had, but maybe I could do a little bit better job of explaining where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of them being, okay, so what's really starting to bug me is this whole Lord of Light thing, right? So Melisandre showed up and lit the swords of the Dothraki on fire, which was an awesome moment.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And one of my favorite parts of the whole episode, and so far this season, was when the Dothraki charged into nothingness,
Yeah.
and you saw their swords slowly flame out.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like this army does not stand a chance. And that was
Yeah.
awesome. But from that point on, I just didn't feel like there was the stakes were raised at all. And that's something we always talked about in screenwriting. Like, as you go, you want to raise the stakes and raise the stakes and raise the stakes and raise the stakes. And it was just, I mean, there was if I did watch the after the episode this time, and they kind of talked about how they wanted to do an ebb and flow,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
never really got that. I just, from the moment the Dothraki's swords were flamed out, like, I'm like, they're done. That's it. So going back to my first point about the whole Lord of Light thing, like, I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, has all of Game of Thrones been like preconceived by the Lord of Light, and like somebody's just carrying out these actions and nobody has free will, and whether it's the three-eyed raven or whatever, like somebody's pulling all the strings, and like that kind of frustrates me. Maybe that's not what's going on, but that kind of feels like what's going on, especially with Bran giving Arya the dagger. Who knows? You guys talked a little bit about who knows what Bran was doing throughout the whole battle where he was warging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of
We
me
still
wonders
don't
if
know.
yeah, and I'm wondering, is he just like running around and pulling the strings to like get this certain outcome? And
Yeah.
to me, like, that's just kind of frustrating, because as a viewer, you want to feel like you're in it and experiencing things and winning and losing with the good guys. But when something like that is going on, then it just feels like it's all pointless, because it's just going to end a certain way. Bran knows how it's going to end. What are we doing? Bran, just tell us. Like, unless you can come up with a really good reason why you can't tell us what's going to happen, then I don't know. That's just a little frustrating for me. And I can play along and enjoy the ride, but like when you're thinking about the bigger picture, that stuff kind of annoys me. And why is Melisandre all of a sudden like very aware of what needs to happen? Because she made a lot of mistakes leading up to this, but now all of a sudden she has all the answers.
Well, she went back to I don't know if you remember but she went back to the city in Volantis. Volantis is where the red priests and priestesses are from, and she was going back there at the end of season, or at some point in season 7.
Right.
So
she talks
I
to
don't know
Varys.
I don't know what happened when she was there. I mean, they never got into it, but
Right.
I'm assuming whatever happened there is what gave her. We talked about the confidence thing. Gave her confidence back or whatever it was, but she got some sort of guidance there, I think, or at least that's what I gleaned from.
Yeah.
From
that's how I took it. Yeah.
from her return.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair enough, and that's good to know. I didn't realize what she was doing after that conversation with Varys.
Yeah.
Was that explicitly said in the show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Someone asked her. It might have been Varys during that
It was
conversation.
Varys. It was when they were up
She
on the
said she was
mountain
going back to
or the cliff.
Volantis.
Yeah, and then she said, I have to come back to this strange country to die just like you.
Yeah. Dear Spider.
That's what she said. Dear Spider.
Right.
Yeah, that's what she says to Varys.
All right. Well, I mean, she made a lot of mistakes along the way, and then all of a
she did.
sudden
Oh,
had the
absolutely.
answers. And we didn't see how she acquired that knowledge. So to me, that's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
And then when she said to Arya, so-and-so, blue eyes, like, I knew right away she was going to kill the Night King.
Yep.
Me too.
Val figured
Instantly.
that out, and I was like, oh yeah, makes sense.
Which is fine, but then like either the double D's are just lucking into making a decent episode, because they said we chose Arya because she was least expected in that moment, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, I was actually surprised when he said that.
I thought they said that they knew 3 years ago that she was going to be the one. I didn't say they necessarily chose her. I think one of the things, and I don't know if we talked about this during our last thing, but the Night King, at least as of this point in the Game of Thrones books, is not a character. He's an invention by D&D, and a lot of people think they kind of wrote themselves into a little bit of a corner here with having a face to this force. And having someone specific to take him down, like that's just not a thing.
Wait, it wasn't in the books?
No, there's no Night King in the books.
Oh,
so
that is an interesting layer.
I would totally agree with that. And I heard you guys say like people complain that it was too easy to beat the Night King. It clearly wasn't easy, because almost everybody died, right?
Yeah.
The whole army is basically wiped out. Aside from
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
go
I
ahead.
was gonna say I think that's just the general like consensus of people that disliked the episode that I've seen online. Like they're all saying it was way too easy, and like you said, like how many people died? Like it wasn't easy.
Right.
Maybe it was done in too short of an episode
Yes.
to show the true like depth of how serious it was. So that I can totally see.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. and this goes back to what I was talking about with like raising the stakes. The emotional stakes aren't raised at any point for me leading up to that. Like if the Night King on his way had a killer sword fight with Jon and killed him, or Arya and killed her, or I think we needed one of those characters to go at some point in this episode, and there needed to be a good fight scene with the Night King, and there wasn't. Well, and that if something like that had happened, then it would raise the emotional stakes to the point where like this guy needs to die, and then when Arya gets him, there's that big hurrah moment. Go ahead.
Yeah, but the whole thing is the Night King. He clearly had the opportunity to fight anyone he wanted, and he just wasn't going to. He's too smart for that. He knows he saw Jon kill one of his generals at Hardhome. He has to know that Jon killed one of his generals fighting north of the Wall. Yeah, he doesn't want to put himself in that position.
Sure.
So that literally the Arya thing is the only way that anyone was ever going to get to him.
Yeah.
So that's my thought on that.
Yeah.
Because he's too smart, but also a little bit smug and cocky. The only person that really had the opportunity before that would have been Daenerys on Drogon, but I mean, clearly his fire didn't do anything to the
Theon.
Theon, kind of.
Yeah.
I knew. Yeah, I think that was telegraphed pretty well, though. That was a really nice moment, by the way,
when
it was.
When Bran turns to Theon, tells him he's a good man.
Yeah. That was spectacular.
Theon knows what's got to go down. But yeah, Dan, that explanation is well and good and makes sense, but it doesn't play out well on screen. Yeah. It doesn't make for a good show.
It did for me, and because when Jon was unable to get to the Night King, both outside the wall, when the Night King raises all the whites, and then when he's trapped in the courtyard before he could get into the Godswood, I'm like, no one can get to him.
Yeah.
So when Arya does finally get to him, that was a big payoff for me. When someone finally was able to to get close enough to him to do anything to him.
Sure, and that's fine. Yeah, that all makes sense. I'm just saying there needed I wanted to see this guy in action, right? We've been building him up for how many seasons? Yeah. I wanted to see him do some fighting.
Yeah, I could totally see if they had made this 2 episodes and made it a little bit bigger. I could totally see that, because there is a part of me that is, I loved the episode and I thought it was fantastic, but I totally get it at the same time that maybe we needed more, because how you were saying, the build up to the end, I was so fight or flight response right at the start. And I was it was crazy. And then Ed went down and I was like, oh my gosh. But then I did mellow out a little bit. So I know I see what you're saying with the buildup. But then I think once the music started and the crypts started being crazy, then it built up for me again, because I was like, now the crypts aren't safe. Nowhere in Winterfell is safe. There's nowhere these people can go. So I think that's when it built up for me again. But it was very brief, because that didn't happen very long before Arya got to him.
And I think we're running into there needed to be another season of this show.
I have thought about that.
And George R. R. Martin has said this I want this to go 9-10 seasons, but they're running into the point where the actors want to do something different. It sucks, but I do feel like everything is a little more condensed than it needs to be. Yeah. Like you said, everything could be flushed out a little bit more, but there's 3 episodes left at this point.
But yet we spent all of last episode sitting around a hearth and joking.
Yeah, I love that though.
Yeah,
that was perfect.
I love that too.
Yeah, but
a lot of people didn't. A lot of people didn't like it.
Here we are saying it feels condensed, but the last 2 episodes didn't feel that way to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying those scenes weren't worthwhile, because like you said, they were entertaining, they were fun. I don't know, it's just I feel like they're speeding it up in the wrong spots.
Sure.
And slowing it down in spots that make sense, but considering where we're at with the show, what's more important, wrapping up this Night King stuff or making sure Tormund explains how he got the Giant Bane nickname.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, I don't want to lose that part of that scene with Tormund, but at the same rate, there could be time for more of what people were looking for.
Yeah, I think, because I've actually thought about that a lot, that I'm starting to be a little bit worried that they're going to make everything too short and quick to end it. And I forgot where I was going with it, but yeah, I think that's my fear. But what I hope for is that this episode, you know, we see in the grand scheme of things how it fit all together. I hope that's what we see.
Yeah, the last three.
With the last three, that like it made sense that it was the episode that it was, and it's not just like hurry through that quick, you know, like
yeah. Some more exposition after the fact kind of thing.
Yeah.
The one thing this episode did for me too is it brought me back to the episode where Sam is in the Citadel and they get the scroll from Winterfell about, you know, Bran and how he made it back to Winterfell, and the maesters are sitting at the table all kind of snicker about the army of the undead, and you know, you're like, oh, you know, you're not taking this threat seriously, like what's wrong with you, you know, you can be a big help,
right?
And you know, they're just like, yeah, things just it'll work its way out, and it did, you know.
And that doesn't that drive you insane though?
Yes and no, because I mean, I would say
if they're gonna march down to King's Landing and Cersei's gonna be like what army of the dead,
right?
That's I don't know. I'm sorry, like that.
No, I think thinking about it, like I am a little bit. I loved the episode, but I think I needed more. Like I needed some more. It was fantastic, but I needed more.
Yeah,
that's what I will say. And I'm scared that it's going to end like. And I'll hate it
in an unsatisfying way.
Yeah, and that's really scary because
it probably will. I mean,
love the show.
Even the showrunner said, you know, probably a lot of people are not going to like the ending. So
yeah, that's really scary.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Going back to Arya's assassination, I thought the moment when the White feels the gust of wind and looks behind him, I thought that was perfect.
Yeah,
because that was her running past.
Yep.
Everyone thought that she jumped over and made a 30-foot leap over. Some of the stupid things have said about this episode are
people it gets to a point where people are just looking for things.
Well, not just that, but do they pay any attention whatsoever to anything that's happening in the show? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. But anyway, I thought it was obvious what was happening in that scene.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Really glad it was Arya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved the callback to Syrio Farrell.
Yes.
He was one of my favorite characters back when he was alive. And also, like, the only book I read was the first book, and the chapters with him and Arya training were by far my favorite. He's such a great character. I kind of wish he was still alive in some way, but maybe he is. Who knows? We'll find out.
Yeah, I know. We never got confirmation that he died.
Right.
Like, one thing I will add, too, is I was kind of disappointed we didn't see White Hodor. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think of that.
I kind of wanted to see White Hodor because, like, how much would that bring back, you know? Like, oh, my God, there he is. Because, like, he has to be a White, right? I mean, he has to be. So, like, I could see where little things were missing. And, like, I read something that, like, you know, it would have been good if Arya had someone else's face on when she, you know.
Yeah. And I knew that stuff wouldn't happen. And that's why, like, Dan and I talked about this a lot last season. We were talking about, like, the theory crafting that goes on.
Yeah.
It kind of spoils the show for you if you're paying attention to all those things because, like, it's built up into such a really cool idea. And then it ends up just being something much more simple, which is good on its own. But when you compare it to some of these theories that are theory crafted, you're like, oh, well, that was kind of.
Yeah. But that's what the point I was making when we talked about it last night is that, you know, the show, the guys D&D, like, they don't need to, like, do what these theories say, you know, like they have a story to tell, they're going to tell it their way.
Sure.
So I think maybe the show is just too big almost. Like, it's so big that people are just like, they have all these theories and they're expecting all of this greatness. And maybe if we didn't have all that noise around it and social media, then maybe it would be fine the way it is. But people can't appreciate it for what it is because they have a vision of something else and whatever. So
those people suck.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some of my other complaints. I was one of those people that felt like it was too dark. It was very difficult to see what was going on most of the time. But part of me understands that those scenes are very expensive, and one of the ways you can get around it is by making it harder to see, speeding up frame rate, those kind of things. Which is one thing that really annoyed me. The difficult to see is one thing, but there a single like well choreographed sword fight?
No, but
No.
I think there's kind of a
That's
reason.
cheap. That just takes time.
No, I know, but I think there's kind of a reason for that, and that's that. First of all, a lot of the undead didn't even have weapons.
Okay, I'm just gonna stop you, Dan, because again, that's a really good explanation.
Yeah.
But it doesn't play out well on screen.
I understand that. Really, like the impression that I got from the battle was that the undead fight they're just waves. Like it's not they're not soldiers. They're meat.
Fodder, yeah.
Yeah, and they just overwhelm things. They bite and scratch and stuff, and don't, for the most part. There's a few with weapons, obviously the wildlings that got killed by the or that got raised from the dead had weapons, but I think a lot of them were completely unarmed. So, I mean, I just expected, it's mostly just, the main characters hacking and slashing at heads and limbs and bodies and stuff, and not sword fighting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right, but again, it just doesn't play out well on TV.
Yeah.
It doesn't make for good entertainment. What else did I have?
Because it was a slaughter. It wasn't.
Sure.
It wasn't a battle. It was slaughter.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
on
another
both
thing.
sides.
Speaking of that, they didn't plan for the fact that all the dead would be brought back to life.
Right.
Like nobody considered that at any point.
I realized that.
Maybe we should immediately burn dead bodies or something like that.
Yeah.
Or at least try to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't realize that until partway through the episode. I was like, oh wait, the dead are just going to be alive and dead again. Wait a second, they can't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no winning this. And I was like, what are they going to do for the next 3 episodes? It's just going to be a Cersei victory party. What are we going to do? But they'd probably come get her too, but.
Right. So I listened, the one Game of Thrones podcast I listened to, they were talking about, after last week's episode, they were talking about, ways they could avoid that, theories that people had come up with. And one of them they came up with was to swallow a dragonglass pill before the battle.
I read that somewhere.
Which I thought was genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one was everybody gets one dragonglass tooth, assuming that they would bite down on their tongue at some point.
Oh, interesting.
Which I thought was pretty cool.
Nice.
That is cool.
But again, theory crafting that didn't make its way into the show. But
Sure.
To me, though, that is a plot hole for them not to have any sort of solution for that.
Yeah, I can see
What
that.
I mean,
How could you not bring that up at the war table?
I'm sure it was a thought, but what more can you do? I guess.
Yeah, I get it, Dan. You're I get it. You're right, but it doesn't make for good TV.
It all may be my mental gymnastics to make things okay, but
Yeah.
I didn't have nearly the issues with it that and I think a lot of it is my filling in the blanks, which
Right.
I'm obviously doing right now.
And that's fine. And if that works for you, that's great. But even
Yeah.
me to fill in those blanks, it still doesn't work for me.
Right.
I still wanted to see it.
Yeah.
No, and I don't think the strategy was that good.
No.
But at the same time, their whole plan was to lure the Night King into a false sense of confidence in his own victory. So, if that meant throwing all your soldiers to die, then I think that was part of the plan.
That's a good thought. Yeah.
Rather than a military victory where, the Night King might not show himself.
Right.
The whole thing was to draw him out of hiding.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. The other thing I can think of at the moment is not enough of our favorite characters died, and I kind of touched on that already about raising the stakes and increasing the emotional investment. But good God, everybody died, and except for we have Brienne on the front lines of hundreds of undead, and Jaime the same, and Pod the same, and they're just fending them off. Meanwhile, everybody else is dead. That's plot armor. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Samwell Tarly.
Yeah,
he should have died.
Sorry.
That was my
He
one
should not have
complaint
survived
was
that.
was
There's
Sam
no way.
because
unless he was hiding really well and we just didn't see it.
That was my one complaint. As much as I like Sam, like he should have been hiding. There's no reason why he shouldn't have died on the front lines, and I will totally agree with that. I will I'll defend all the heroes, the good fighters for making it through. That's whatever. That happens.
Yeah.
But Sam had no business being alive at the end of all that. No business whatsoever.
No, he's like crying with like a White Walker laying on him at one point, and I was like,
yeah, he gets. I don't know if someone off screen saves him, but he, like, when Jon is running through to try to get to Bran and the Night King, like, Jon sees him get overrun by whites,
and he still
and keeps going.
Doesn't
like,
make any sense.
But then there's a scene a little bit later with Sam crying and in a pile of dead people.
Yeah, and
that
didn't
make much sense to me. I will give you that. I will concede that point.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think I've said all the bad things. Was there any other common complaints that you guys had heard? Maybe I can try to shed some more light on them. I can't remember.
I'm trying to think.
Off the top of my head.
There's a lot of complaints.
Yeah, there were so many. I think
I was really frustrated with Bran warging out the whole time. So I hope that is explained.
I hope so too. But I think Bran's a bad. I think he's up to no good. I really do. I've felt that way since the start of this season. I'm like,
is that the twist? The Night King's actually the good guy?
Yeah, right. We killed the good guy.
And now he's dead.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know if it's just because he's such a weird character and that's why I feel that way. But I don't know. I feel like he's up to no good. Doing whatever, because like he shouldn't have been gone that long. It just didn't make sense.
Yep.
So I don't know.
Well, I think that's it for me. Oh, one other point I wanted to bring up. I liked Beric Dondarrion's death.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
when
good.
he was framed in the doorway like Jesus Christ on the cross. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was very cool.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
How'd you feel about Jorah? Jorah's demise.
Jorah was top 5 favorite character for me, except once he got too soft with Dany.
Yeah.
But I thought, he got the death he deserved, a very heroic death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just hope Daenerys turns out to be a good person, because if Jorah is gonna die for that monster, for the Mad Queen, I'll be very disappointed.
I don't think she's gonna turn out to be good.
Yeah,
either.
I think he was one of the things that was keeping her from turning into the Mad Queen.
I think.
And if Tyrion ends up defecting, like I think he might, from her side, then she doesn't have anyone to check her impulses. Because I don't think that Missandei is gonna do that.
Did you guys also think that Tyrion and Sansa were gonna kill each other?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Thought they had a
So
suicide
that frustrated. That's another thing. That's another complaint, actually, because it cheated. It got me to feel those emotions only for them to get up and run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was annoyed.
I mean, I guess I would have been surprised if they did that ultimately. I thought that's what was going to happen, but I would have been surprised. That I don't think that would have fit in with either character and what they've been through and what they've survived. Right. I feel like they would have at least tried to fight.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I really liked that moment between them. That was one of my favorite scenes, for sure.
Yeah, that was really nice when she tells him he was the best. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Sansa, can you not?
What a
please?
terrible thought.
It's not funny. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I as I said, our last episode, the image of Arya flying up to the Night King will forever be serious. I watched a bunch of times today. I still get emotional when I see that.
Yeah. And then he spins around and grabs her by the neck, and you're like, "Oh man!"
Yeah.
And then she drops it.
As soon as he grabbed her, I was like, "Oh man, this is it. Like we're losing Arya right now." And then she pulled her tricky moves, and it's funny because I always noticed how she like flipped that dagger around like all the time. She'd flip it to show someone. She'd flip it in her like all the time. So it was just cool to see her, do it again, but with meaning that time.
How did you feel? A lot of people complained that Arya didn't deserve the kill for that.
I mean, who else would have been able to kill the Night King?
That was my thought too. Like, and they made it seem like just because her story wasn't involved with his at all until the last season, that she would, well, like I'm
She didn't deserve
what is she gonna hide in the crypts? Like, what? Of course she's gonna stand up for her family and stand up for her home, and that's what she does. She sneaks up on people and murders them. Like, that's what she's trained to do.
Yeah. Kind of makes me wonder though.
What?
Is this it for Arya? Like, if she after she kills the Night King, she's not gonna get another. Like,
I had the same
life-saving kill.
Like, if she goes after Cersei, I don't think that's gonna end well for her, because she, like you said, she got her big moment, and I don't think it would be right for her to have another big moment, but I don't know.
Clegane Bowl, right?
Clegane Bowl. Well, I did say that, and I thought maybe we'd see this in this episode, that I thought the Hound would go down protecting her. And he did protect her in a way, but he didn't go down, so...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was another good moment when Barrack's like, you gotta fight or whatever, and he's like, you can't kill death. And then Barrack's like, well, tell that to her, and Arya's like up on the roof, running around.
Yep, and his eyes like bug out of his head, and he worries about her. Yeah.
I wish they had made so when she fell, she cracked her head on the concrete.
That's gross.
I wish they had made that a little bit more obvious that was affecting her ability to fight, because we saw that, but then it didn't make it very clear that was. I didn't
notice the first time I watched through that she smashed her head on the wall.
Yeah, I thought it was easy to miss, and
I didn't think anything of it.
All of a sudden she got really bad at fighting, and they explained after the episode that she cracked her skull and it really held her back. But I think they could have made that a little bit more clear.
See, my first watch through, I thought she stopped fighting because she lost her weapon. Because she didn't have it anymore after that. I think when she fell, she dropped it. So that's what I thought. And then like you said, when they explained afterwards that her ability to fight was manipulated, I was like, or changed that. I was like, that makes sense. Yeah. But I think she also, like I said, simultaneously lost her weapon that Gendry made her at that time when she slammed her head on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you guys. I asked Sophie and she didn't remember, but I feel like we've seen that method of killing somebody before, where somebody's got the blade up here and then they drop it and then they grab it with the other hand and stab. Maybe it's in a different movie or show, but I feel like I've seen that exact thing play out.
She did that when she fought Brienne. That's how she got the Brienne the knife to Brienne's throat. It wasn't exactly. It was more of a side toss. But it was the same thing.
Same type of
thing.
When she had her when they were not dueling, but sparring.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's what you're thinking of. It might very well have happened in something else.
I'd have to watch it again.
She does do that when she's fighting Brienne.
Yeah. No, you're right. I do remember that right at the end of their little match that they have.
Yep.
Yeah. I know. We keep getting fuzzy.
So what do you think is going to happen?
I have literally no idea. I honestly thought the episode was going to end when the Night King raised the dead and they were going to leave us on a cliffhanger.
Me too.
I'm really glad they didn't, because I hate cliffhangers.
I do too.
But that's what I thought was going to happen, and I thought there was going to be some sort of, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I really don't know.
I thought the same exact thing. I thought they were going to end it when his generals or whatever are walking forward. I was like, I turned to Dan. I was like, this is where they're going to end it. Oh, no.
I don't know that I would have been able to carry on with life if they had ended it at that point.
That was my exact thought, too, throughout the whole episode. Because it went longer, so I kept expecting, and I knew it was a little bit longer, but the time, no frame of reference for an 86-minute episode of Game of Thrones. So I'm like, it's going to end now, isn't it? And I'm going to be so mad.
Yep.
But it didn't.
No, I would have just had to lay in bed for the entire week until the next episode was on. There's no way.
I'd call into sick to work every day.
But so question for you though, given kind of your feelings about the episode, do you think leaving on a cliffhanger would have helped at all for how you felt about it in general?
Maybe. That's a good thought. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, if I sat with those emotions for a whole week.
Right.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. That's why I was saying, if they had done this in 2 episodes, and even, the next episode had been, only, 20 minutes of battle in Arya's scene, and then the rest of it is the aftermath of that. That might have been a little more satisfying as far as that, emotional roller coaster, I guess.
That's actually one thing I read that was interesting that I did want to bring up that I read today. It's a lot of it's interviews with like George R. R. Martin talking about Tolkien, and one of his frustrations with Tolkien's work was that after Sauron was defeated, he wanted to know what happened after that, and I think that's why the Night King thing is not the ultimate conflict in Game of Thrones, or at least
That's interesting.
in the show. He joked like what's Aragorn's tax policy, like how's he gonna govern as a king? I know he was a king for 100 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's still like orcs around. Are they gonna go slaughter orc babies? Are they gonna try to commit genocide on orcs? Like what happens after?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that played into what's happening here in Game of Thrones in the show or not, or if the books are gonna play out the same way.
Didn't you guys feel though that like the conquest of the Night King would be the final?
Yes.
No, because if you think about it, like the only
I
people who cared about that for most of the show was the people on the wall.
Yeah, and
which was a very small cast of characters. It was Jon and the Night's Watch until they finally crashed through the wall. Then it was a problem. But everything else was gerrymandering or whatever for the throne.
Yeah. I don't know. To me it was just that part frustrated me a little bit too, and I haven't fully fleshed out how to think about it, but like to me that was just telegraphed the whole time that this was the ultimate. This was going to be the final battle, like the big. Once the Game of Thrones had been played, like there would still be this massive threat to deal with.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't like that. That's not how it worked out, but it kind of threw me off because that's what I had been led to expect.
Yep, I agree.
And we've also one other thing I wanted to bring up, and I think I kind of did already when I said how too many main characters stayed alive, but like one thing we've come to know about Game of Thrones is everybody is vulnerable, but it didn't feel like that in this episode.
It was very safe. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, I don't want to see any of the major characters go down, but at the same time, like, that's kind of the expectation we have for Game of Thrones now because of what they've done to us in the past, but that's what made the show different and like, holy cow, I have to keep watching because I just can't imagine what's going to happen.
Right.
But again, I go back to there's still 3 episodes, and that's where I hope that we see, this episode made sense.
Yeah.
Because of whatever happens.
I will say that when the episode was airing for the first time, I did not feel like all the characters were safe. I almost hyperventilated when Brienne was overrun.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. It's Game of Thrones, and you don't know if everyone's going to survive. It turns out Tyrion was right when he jokingly said, I think we're all going to live.
Yeah.
Everybody in that room lived, right?
Everyone in that room lived, yes.
Yeah.
But I did not. We were counting the characters at the end of the episode to make sure all the main characters. Obviously, we know Theon died. We know
Ed Tollett.
Ed, Lyanna Mormont.
Melisandre. Oh yeah, what do you think of Lyanna Mormont?
I didn't like it in the moment, but thinking about it, I really like it.
Yeah, it was well done.
Yeah, I don't know, something. I don't know if it was just how it was filmed or something. Like it was just a little too much for me.
Yeah.
But now, like thinking back on it, I'm like, what an awesome way for little Lyanna to go.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sound like a hater. I still love Game of Thrones. I think it was good. I did echo some of the complaints that you guys had touched on. So I just wanted to say my piece.
Yeah, I think it's fair, and
some of them are fair.
Right. Some of them are fair. But, like, the article I read yesterday, the guy was like, I'm not even watching the rest of the show. I hate it. I don't care. It was a waste of my life. It was a waste of time. This writing's awful. I should have quit a long time ago. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, chill out. Give it 3 more episodes. Like, there's no reason to, I don't know.
That's our hate culture for you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I can't believe people like that exist.
Yeah.
And people support them by reading their articles.
Exactly. Yes. Which is why I clicked off of it very quickly once I saw where it was going.
There you go.
Yeah, Corey, I mean, you mentioned real quick, my last thought, you mentioned emotional impact. And I mean, I somewhat agree. It didn't have the emotional impact for me that like the Battle of the Bastards did.
Yeah,
I thought all of those big battles were way better done.
And it's
and
not
he
even
did say that
it's
right after
it's
the
not
episode.
even the filmography or anything like that. It's the stakes for me were higher because of what Ramsay was. And the Night King was not Ramsay in my eyes.
Which is crazy. Isn't that crazy?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
He's a one-dimensional character. Like his whole thing was to wipe out people. Like how interesting is that? How often do you see that in fantasy? Like he's the ultimate fantasy trope, and that wasn't as interesting to me as Ramsay or Joffrey or any of the other villains in the game.
Yeah.
Would you say that then is a mistake to not make him more three-dimensional?
No, I'm glad he's gone. I'm interested to see what's going to happen between the characters.
Yeah.
I think there's
the
gonna
characters
be a lot of mess.
with bigger personalities and
yeah.
I was nervous through this entire episode, but I literally shook the entire episode of Battle of the Bastards. I shook like a leaf.
Oh yeah, I was pregnant with the twins and I couldn't watch because I was like, if I watch this, I'm gonna go into labor. So I sat and played on my phone the whole time. Checked on Dan every now and then to make sure he was still with us, and and then at the end when I knew what happened in that episode, then I was like, okay, let's watch it now, so I don't have the twins early.
Yeah. Well, also Battle of the Bastards, there was no God from the Machine. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, there was none of that in Battle of the Bastards that I know of. That I can think
a lot of people argue
there was a ton of it in this episode.
A lot of people argue that the Knights of the Vale was, but it wasn't.
It was not at all.
You literally see Sansa writing to Littlefinger to send the Knights of the Vale.
Yeah.
It's just like I said, a lot of the complaints are from people just not paying attention.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll find out.
I'm nervous.
We'll find out. We only got a couple more days.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, it's Thursday. Not much longer till Game of Thrones. But then I'm like, oh crap. But then the weekend's over. It's this terrible dichotomy of like, I don't want the weekend to end, but I want the weekend to end because then it's
I'm
Game
with
of
you
Thrones
100%.
time.
Yep. I have that conflict every Sunday night.
Yep.
All right. Anything else, Corey? Final thoughts?
No, that's it.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thanks for joining us. Yeah, this will go straight onto YouTube. I didn't stream this one live, so
no problem.
I might end up. I'll probably tack this on to maybe after next episode's Game of Thrones recap for.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Or like you said, I might put it up as a hangover too. I haven't quite decided yet.
Do it. I'd
Whatever
do it
you
as a
decide.
hangover.
All right. But yeah, thanks for listening to our Game of Thrones recap. We'll
Yes.
see you after next week's episode.